number of sitting lawmakers are facing criminal charges because nothing bars them from serving in Parliament. A recent Supreme Court ruling is changing things thanks to the anti-corruption crusade of an 85-year-old woman. CNN's Delhi correspondent has more on that in this story.
And after seeing this, how can you keep quiet?
85-year-old Lily Thomas never imagined a petition she filed 8 years ago in the Indian Supreme Court would one day put some of the country's most prominent politicians behind bars. Thomas's petition requested the court intervene to ban convicted lawmakers from serving in Parliament. Why did you feel the need to file this petition?
But look at the condition of the Parliament. So many criminals. The Parliament is not the place for criminals to sit. They should be in the jail. No compromises.
30% of the lawmakers in the lower house of Parliament face criminal charges, including rape and murder. But today, a proud moment for Thomas and a turning point for India. After the court ruled, the government had to act. In 72 hours, 3 powerful politicians were jailed in a country where corruption is rampant. It's a warning to all that the old ways will no longer be tolerated. Charismatic former cabinet minister Lalu Prasad Yadav, the first to go since the Supreme Court ruling, sentenced to 5 years for his involvement in a corruption scam 17 years ago.
This guy has got...
Electoral reform activists say the political system does a poor job of scrutinizing potential candidates.
Political parties, when they distribute tickets, they just want a candidate who can win elections, whatever means they use, doesn't matter. So the two main things that a candidate use to win elections, one is the muscle power and another one is money power.
All major Indian political parties were initially against the Supreme Court ruling. Several attempts were made to overturn it through an ordinance, a temporary legislation that bypasses Parliament. But then a dramatic about-face by the ruling Congress party after Rahul Gandhi, one of its most powerful leaders and potential candidate for Prime Minister, dissented.
My opinion on the ordinance is that it's complete nonsense and that it should be torn up and thrown out.
Now, the controversial legislation protecting convicted politicians has been withdrawn, and the timing couldn't have been more significant, coming as the country gears up for national elections early next year. For Thomas and millions of Indians demanding a cleaner government, there's a sense of change in the air.
It's high time that the politics is cleansed.
Samima Uras, CNN, New Delhi.
The effects of the political impasse in Washington is so far-reaching that families of fallen U.S. soldiers are devastated to learn that survival benefits to help pay for burials and other expenses have been suspended because of the partial U.S. government shutdown, which has now entered its 10th day. And public outrage saw the government scramble to find a quick fix on Wednesday. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr has more.
24-year-old Army Ranger Cody Patterson came home to his family as Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel paid his respects. Unbearable grief for families made much worse because the government shutdown left them without death benefits. Marine Lance Corporal Jeremiah Michael Collins' remains were brought Monday to Dover. His mother, Shannon, says he was a great Marine.
He became a Marine to become somebody, and he became a great Marine.
The White House Wednesday promised a quick fix to a tragedy that had become a PR disaster. The president told WRC-TV he acted as soon as he learned of the problem.
When I heard about this story, I told the Department of Defense, within our administrative powers, we should be able to get that fixed.
As Hagel stood on the tarmac, top aides were urgently working on a solution. The Pentagon signed a contract with Fisher House Foundation, a private organization that helps war wounded. Fisher House will pay the family's bills and a $100,000 death benefit. The government will pay it back when the shutdown ends. But for veterans, a looming disaster if the shutdown continues much longer. More than 3 million receive disability checks that may not come on November 1st. Many new veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan still waiting to be approved for disability payments will have to keep waiting.
Roughly 1,400 veterans a day are now not receiving decisions on their disability compensation claims.
If the mess in Washington isn't solved, the VA will not be able to pay $6 billion due to more than 5 million people expecting checks, including veterans, their surviving spouses, and children on November 1st. And the Pentagon insists it told Congress, it told White House officials about this fact that the death benefits wouldn't be paid. There was even a news briefing for reporters, but many members of Congress said they believe the Pentagon still could have gone ahead and paid it. Still a very major PR political disaster.
We'll now take our second break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we'll now go back to one of our top stories. The Gambian deputy ambassador to Washington has told Grts that 3 people have been arrested by the U.S. Secret Service following an unruly gang forced its way into the premises of the Gambian embassy in Washington. The group stormed the embassy building chanting anti-government slogans. We will have details of that now.
This Washington neighborhood, housing the Gambian diplomatic offices, drug crime, forceful entry into the Gambian embassy in the U.S. capital. This tiny group of unruly youths took their perceived version of freedom to a different level, and for even on a land they describe as the leader of the free world, their actions will never go unpunished. The group's actions disrupted work at the embassy on the day, dispelling any notion of a peaceful element to their storming of the Gambian embassy offices in Washington. A match of videos of the protest went viral on the internet and drew widespread reaction from the public. Earlier in the day, I spoke to the Gambian charge at the Washington embassy, Mr. Babakar Jallo, about the unexpected actions of this unruly gang.
Yesterday, by around 11 a.m. in the morning, I was about to join the Minister of Finance and his permanent secretary at the World Bank IMF annual meetings. Then I had to come back into the office to pick certain paper. Then as soon as I entered in my office and I started, I had noise, unusual, something very unusual in the embassy. Then I took my time and I peeped from my office. I went. They were in the lobby, and I peeped and I recognized one of them.